On his very last day in office at 12:51 a.m., ex-President Donald Trump pardoned a man named Jonathan Braun, who had been convicted of running a drug smuggling ring. Now, according to the new reporting from the New York Times, the consequences of this unusual pardon paint a broader picture of how Trump used the White House to influence the American justice system and how he could do it again in a second term. The Times writes, quote, just months after Mr. Trump freed him, Mr. Braun returned to working as a predatory lender, according to New York State's Attorney General. 2 months ago, a New York State judge barred him from working in the industry. Weeks later, a federal judge, acting on a complaint from the Federal Trade Commission, imposed a nationwide ban on him. A New York Times investigation drawing on documents and interviews with current and former officials and others familiar with Mr. Braun's case found that there were even greater ramifications stemming from the commutation than previously known, and revealed new details about Mr. Braun's history and how the commutation came about. Joining our conversation is one of the reporters on the byline on that report, New York Times Washington correspondent Mike Schmidt. And as viewers of this program know, Mike is the proud and most likely sleep-deprived father of baby Izzy. Mike, congratulations. Frank Figliuzzi also staying with us for this segment. Mike, first of all, thanks for this reporting. Tell us what's the significance of this particular pardon and why it matters for a man who might be president of the United States again.
So this is the type of thing that could happen if Trump came back to office. It happened at the end of the administration, where there were a flood of clemency requests that came into the White House. Trump had basically stiff-armed the Justice Department's program for looking at clemency applications, where there was sort of detailed, rigorous process to determine whether people should receive pardons or, commutations. And it was run out of the White House in a far less structured way. And as we see in this story, Jonathan Braun was an unusual candidate to receive clemency, and there was a consequence to it. So a lot of times we talk about, Trump undermining the rule of law and Trump, taking on democratic norms. In this case, there's a tangible example where it actually hurt an SDNY investigation. The government, federal prosecutors were in talks, in negotiations with Jonathan Braun in 2020 for him to get out of prison in exchange for cooperating against other people in the merchant cash advance business. And the government never thought he would get a pardon or commutation. He had many years left in prison, and they were going back and forth in this negotiation. What they didn't know is that Jonathan Braun, relying on his family's ties to the Kushners, were also trying to go through the front door of the White House for a commutation, and were successful in that.
So this is interesting, and there are two interesting points here, Frank. One is the legal matter, and that is, if his Braun sentence were not commuted, he may have been cooperating and testifying in an investigation that remains unfinished to this day. But the bigger one might be the one that Mike just made, and that is, if you know people like the Kushners or you got a lawyer who's in Trump's orbit, things work differently for you.
Yeah, indeed. And while we've seen something like this occasionally in past administrations, and there's controversial pardons throughout the history of presidential administrations, what we haven't seen is a complete abandonment of the justice process, meaning, as Mike said, you don't even vet candidates for pardon. We've even heard from Attorney General Barr on this topic. Former Attorney General Barr has said, look, he contacted the White House and said, you're issuing pardons faster than we can process and vet back here, so you don't even know who you're letting go or letting off. And as Mike has reported, this is a double whammy. This guy was convicted and headed toward prison for drug distribution, but was actually immersed within predatory lending and a much larger DOJ investigation, and on the verge of cooperating when, of course, he thumbed his nose at that whole process and said, I'm out of here. I've been pardoned. So what does this mean for the future? It means that a former president who's already told us he will consider pardoning January 6th defendants is going to do it. And he's going to do it without benefit of the Justice Department saying, hold on, this guy actually has a problem. He's an ongoing terrorist, or this is a child molester. That's not going to happen. We have a president who's not just going to pervert the system, he's going to abandon the system.
What's interesting about that is that one assumes, Mike, that there's a vetting process in place when someone's about to be pardoned, and some of that vetting process is just pro forma stuff. But if someone had vetted this properly, and maybe they did, and maybe Trump just ignored it, they would have said, hold on, there's a very big other case going on. If you pardon this guy, there's a whole lot of stuff that won't happen. There's a whole lot of injustice that will result from it. Did that vetting not happen, or did the vetting happen and Donald Trump ignored it? Do we know?
So we actually report in this story that the line prosecutors and investigators who were trying to reach this deal with Jonathan Braun for him to cooperate were not consulted about the pardon or the commutation. They were not asked whether this was a good idea or not. And that runs in the face of the way that it was done during the Obama administration, when there was a lengthy back and forth, between prosecutors who had worked on cases about whether the individual was a good candidate for clemency. So you had these investigators in New York who were trying really hard to flip this guy, to take on this industry that has destroyed a lot of small businesses across the country. They thought they were working towards a deal. They thought they had maximum leverage. They thought Jonathan Braun had 7 more years in prison. So at some point he was going to come around and make the deal with them. And then all of a sudden, all of that leverage evaporates instantaneously at 2:51 in the morning on Trump's last day in office. And he's a free man. And to the point of the consequences of this, he has returned to working in the predatory loan industry. He has returned to that practice and has basically been banned from doing business in New York State and the country by judges just in the past few months.